to the show. I'm JVR, and we are here today with a very interesting mind. We're bending reality itself, if we can even do that. My guest is someone who exists at the intersection of art, code, and something, I don't know, almost otherworldly. He uses, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Audition, Aduchon. I think it's in French is Aduchon. Jen, AI notebooks. I know a lot of you are probably laughing at this. You're going to be laughing at me. Photographer, data scientist, AI, a man whose name alone is a paradox. Zen Materialist. Buckle up because this conversation it's going places with my friend Zen. Hi, Zen. Hi.
Hello.
Wow. Data
That's a
scientist, photographer, AI artist, philosopher. What don't you do?
I try to do everything. I'm not great at anything, but I'm okay at almost everything. So I try to merge everything when I'm doing anything.
'Cause I want to be you. What's with the name? What is this
Um,
contradiction? A philosophy or just a cool handle?
I mean, like Zen Cone, it's kind of a joke to make you stop thinking. But I was really into Zen as a young adult. I traveled around the world and realized how much better things could be, and that, better materially. Letting go of reality is like, well, maybe you should actually do something in reality. Um, and so, I mean, like all religions, it's kind of a way to remind you to go against your kind of basic nature. So I say, it's okay to want, but it's also okay not to have. Is kind of the basic mantra of that. A friend of mine summed that up as like easy come, easy go. Like, well, yeah, kind of. Work towards something, but I understand, it's unlikely that I'm going to get that thing. And that kind of sums up my art career. So here we are.
You've been around for a while and your progression has been vast. You've got some things going on. So the question is, does AI allow you to extend that vision or disrupt it?
My mother is an artist and my father was a scientist. And so I've always thought about the two in tandem. And so far, I've only been able to make a living as a scientist. But something happens every 5 to 10 years, and there's a break, and I work on my art again. And I'm now in kind of such a break, having gotten laid off 2 years ago. um, but I think of art and science as two ways to help us understand the world, and both are very important. And so I try to, bring those together when I can. The photography, I call it active light photography. So there is like light photography, so like long exposures of, generally moving lights. But what I'm doing is also active in that I'm moving the camera, zooming in and out, shaking, spinning. So I don't know what exactly will come out at the other end of that. And this is most fun with fireworks, lots of moving lights there. And so that's where the Fuegos Reales collection came from. Active light photography of fireworks, happened to be in Spain at the time. But I've used this process for like zoo lights or Christmas decorations. I mean, you can have a lot of fun with it. You just have to take hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs to kind of get an image that speaks to you. So when kind of AI generative art came on the scene, it felt like a very familiar process to me. So you have to create hundreds, if not thousands, of images to find ones that kind of speak to you, right? And it is that randomness, like the movement of the camera or the sparks of the fireworks, that's kind of key to discovering images you would not otherwise see. That kind of science comes back in through, using the technology. I'm always trying to stay on, on top of things. Digital photography 15 years ago, AI synthography, some people call it today. But I have a PhD in cognitive science, and so I'm also thinking about my thinking. Why does this randomly generated image speak to me? What connections lead me to keep it versus deleting it? And that randomness is a kind of Zen. It's a way of letting go, not desiring, not too much at least, a particular outcome, and you kind of just take joy in the images that appear. That's kind of what I do in not quite a nutshell.
That's so lovely. I just want to comment that when I think about my thinking, it's not ever about like what you're thinking. It's about how am I going to drop that weight before I go to New York next week? That's my thinking. It's ridiculousness. We have like this much of an insight of you, and we have so much more to go. I love this. So when you work with AI, are you, do you think of yourself as the creator or sort of like the curator? Like who's in charge when you're working in code? Is it you or the machine?
It's a partner, right? And jazz improvisation, kind of, and you're just kind of playing off of each other in a sense. And so, I don't know what it's thinking, and especially through the randomness of my prompts, which I'll show later, I don't know what to expect, but it is possible to like slowly guide things closer to things that again like kind of speak to me, um, for whatever my goal is. Taking a Zen approach to it, it's like I just have a general idea of I want something to happen, right? It's like AI isn't doing it itself, right? It has to be made to do things. But at the same time, I I want to explore, right? And so the latent space of these AI models is nearly infinite. And so just going through that space itself, that process is fun, frankly, and things you can't even describe to make on purpose.
The way that you do this, how do I pronounce it? Is it Aduchon?
So that's just a handle.
It's just a handle. Oh, okay. Is that your handle?
It's one of many.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is so cool. I didn't even realize this. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but it's like AI notebooks.
Just a common thing out in the world to put stuff
Okay.
on GitHub and share software.
For the non-coders like me, please explain this in the simplest, most poetic way possible. If AI were a musical instrument, what's it playing for you?
Um, yeah, so I mean, it's freeform jazz, right? And so you're just kind of playing with it and going through a process and like testing out different approaches. And the code is just kind of keeping track of all that, keeping track of your preferences, as you see these images. The prompts that went into making that image become more likely the next time around. Like again, like making thousands of images and testing things out, before you find, what's going to work. And then even then it might not work for everything you want to create. And so it's still a very long process. But that process itself is like you're just looking at a lot of cool images along the way. So it's fun in that sense.
Can we jump into a little show and tell right now? Could we do that?
Sure.
I have some questions I want to ask you, but I think they're more apropos while the
Uh,
design is sort of up.
so this is the notebook. I call them aesthetic experiments. So because they are experiments, you're testing hypotheses of prompts that will work. They're generally of this form. So you have a line, something you want to make a picture of, more or less. But everything else, all of these other adjectives, materials, art periods, artists, background, all these things are randomized for you.
Okay, so if I were to jump onto this site right now,
Hmm.
what would I get? Would I get this page?
So that's GitHub, open in Colab. So you have to have
Okay.
a Google account and some money
Okay.
in there
Okay.
uh, because you have to have an A100 RAM, uh,
Okay.
high RAM machine to run this code. You have to have a Google Drive set up as well. And so this will kind of create all that stuff for you in my drive. I'm
Mhm.
using this Flux model that came out last year, which is kind of one of the better open source models, even still today.
Mhm.
Um, and then so you set up that model that can take 10 minutes. But the core thing is kind of what the lines are that you want to illustrate. I took these from Shakespeare's Sonnet 154, the last sonnet in his collection. Um, and this is like, let's see what happens. It's like how so it's like again, it's like I have no trying to keep a child's mind, right? It's like trying to have like no expectations of what I want this to look like. The meat of what's in there is all these different types of prompts. Got all these art periods, materials, adjectives. If you're doing stuff kind of photographic and outdoors, especially, it's like, what do you want in the background or time of day, image qualities, adverb. What I did recently was get a bunch of terms that might be used in a review of a ballet, like kind of the medium or the shape you want. Add a list of artists. Every prompt will select a random set of all of these things. So I've got the line from Shakespeare, "Little love
Ah,
God lying once asleep,"
okay.
and then the rest of this is just kind of randomly created.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so the next line, again, kind of cartoony. Oh, here we've got, photographic, rule of thirds are a random sample of those prompts.
It just keeps running images. Do you just like press go and it just like pops up 20 images? Do
Yeah,
you? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So what I usually do is let this run with like 20 variations for each line, and then the next day I look at those. So that's kind of the next step is what I call prompt voting. So here's all the prompts. So I've got the system set up to like, do I want this or not? So that's a delete. Stuff like this. This is what I call a keeper. So this is not what I want for this project, but this is a very cool image. And so part of this process is like, wow, that's another project. It's like I didn't even know I wanted to do that, right? But now I do. And so that's part of the joy of this process is like just getting new ideas for new things to explore. So you kind of go through all of these images. It's like, okay, so I accepted this one. So that's cool. That was all right.
Do you ever see patterns in your own photography that mirror patterns in this AI?
I've never seen anything that looks like my photography.
Wow. Wow. That's saying something.
Yeah, so I mean I do someday will like make, a LoRa model, so a fine-tuned model off of my photography. But yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. So out of these 28 images that were created, so two per line, I accepted 11 of those. And you do this kind of repetitively, what happens is that you build up these probabilities of what kind of terms you like. So reimagined showed up. So I'm going to give that a gain. So the next time around, that's more likely to show up in the prompt. And so some of these adjectives, dazzling, exceptional, were positive. I don't have any artists in this, image quality. So kind of more photographic stuff is what I'm liking for this project. So what happens is these prompts are more likely to be chosen. You can slowly guide things to where you want them to be as you see where they could be, right? So
Right.
again, it's
Right.
like trying to go in with no preconceptions, but understanding as you see what is possible, starting to focus things.
Enormous creatures augment my desire. The merely beautiful bore me to death, whose mothers live between an easy life and a memory to be. But you, your desire, trapped in brilliant eyes, a light by which I could live forever, you feed on some hidden abundance, an enemy's treasure candy. An edible garter round the earth. I alone call you out. Yank the truth from your throat. Suck your vomit. Tell the world, here is your glutton, so I can eat the remains hidden neath your gravestone.
What's something this AI tool does that still blows you away?
Again, it's like you just never know what's going to show up. So
Ooh,
this was my the keepers from my Valentine's project,
I remember this.
really eating your heart. It's like so there, I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff in here that, is pretty interesting in one way or another, a source of another project. Kind of like these
Oh,
characters. These are
I love
cool.
these characters. Oh, wow.
Like, there's a story here, right? It's like I didn't even know about this story until I saw this image.
So what does the prompting look like for that image?
So
Heart,
that's the
heart,
line from Shakespeare. With this model, you can actually have two sets of prompts, a
neat.
shorter one and a longer one. So this longer one is origami. Yeah, we saw some of
Ah,
that.
if it were me and I wanted to recreate those characters over and over and over again to come up with, say, an AI movie short, right? Would I then go back to this to find that language so that I can generate it, regenerate it so that the characters are now sitting or now dancing or laughing, eating.
Hmm. Maybe all of the tokens in these prompts are pushing the vector in different directions. And so removing one of these could lead to a totally
Eliminate.
different
Yep.
image. And so that's actually part of kind of the next step with the aesthetic experiments is like we saw something that was acceptable for one prompt. So
Mm.
then is it going to be acceptable for all the others in the poem, right? And so we start to look through kind of how it interprets the other lines, kind of more photographic versions, like, oh, these are actually okay. But if we go up to some of these others,
Oh, these are lovely.
it's like this was more of a photograph that I liked, and then it
Uh,
kind of turned into this painting given
wow.
this other prompt, more photographic. So it's like I deleted this. This one's not going to work for all of the lines of that poem.
Hmm.
Whereas this one, this kind of Disney-ish thing, it's like, oh, that could work. Anyway, so you can kind of go through and say it's like, is that kind of uh, that one random prompt I liked for that one image going to work for all of the others? I ended up choosing maybe four total that I liked. But then the other aspect of this is the seed. So the random number that kind of gets everything started, that creates the noise that these diffusion models are kind of building the image from, that can completely change things also. And so now we look through all of those, generate all of those images, vote again.
What's the weirdest thing in this particular prompting sequence that AI hallucinated, do you think?
Came there for the cure, and this is and this by that I prove. Down here, just these like this. And so it's like that was very unexpected. This kind of
Mhm.
stark office scene is like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Oh,
Definitely a story there as well. So yeah, so it's like you never know kind of what you'll find out, what you'll see. Again, kind of these two
oh,
figures
wow.
in a stark room. It's very interesting. And that's, the exact same prompt as these other two, 12.0 and 12.1. It's just a different random number that start creates that noise that leads to this different endpoint, totally different endpoint. I think because of the randomness of
Mm.
these prompts, these are not what people have typed in normally. They're very flexible, I would say, because it's like there's no like clear answer. The randomness of just the number itself producing that noise that it starts from can lead to just very different places. It's a very unstable system, which allows kind of really interesting things to show up. Uh,
If you let this AI, this particular AI, run wild for like 30 days with no inputting, what do you think it would create? Would it just conjure something up, or would it just stay muted?
well, one, you'd burn through a lot of money, and then it would take forever to just look at all of those images. Through this voting process that I use, that this notebook helps you just keep track of the things you like, basically. But there's still an infinite space of images.
The movie that you presented at the AI Film Festival, was that done by that form of coding?
Started so the climate story, that one.
Yeah,
The core images were, yeah, done through this process.
that film was, I still to this day, I think about what you did and how you did that. And I know that a lot of us creators are edit based. We want to edit out all the ugly stuff in AI, but like the fact that you let that flow through, it's such a remarkable piece of work. In fact, also that was the beginning of our sort of meeting and friendship. I just love that work. I don't think it was revered enough. I don't think people saw what I saw. Dang it!
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. That was kind of the NFT version versus like a movie version with titles and everything, which
Yeah.
I should create.
Did you take this and edit it in a doc?
Is purely code
Wow.
from,
Wow.
yeah,
Blown. Just
yeah,
blown away.
yeah.
Blown away. This
So that's kind of one of my other guiding principles is like I want to be able to wrangle the code itself to produce the whole thing. Uh,
jeez,
yeah.
man, it would take months to be able to create those just camera angles alone is just a dynamic in which the assistance of having an editing bay is always, it's easier to just manipulate the image
Mm.
that way in AI, in just a general prompting machine. But you're talking otherworldly numerical genius, man. I don't
So it's
beyond.
like, and the code is always changing, because this is all built on open source stuff, and it's like that kind of ages out. And so to even create this again would take a long time to like get all the packages lined up, and I don't know. So this is definitely a moment in time. I don't know if I could produce again something like this. So that kind of makes it special as well. So the core idea was like women, a mother and daughter, dealing with modernization and eventually the end of the world. Papa, can you beer me? A portrait of my father with beer cans. This work is literally 50 years in the making. My dad collected these cans from his travels around the world and the US starting in the 70s. Growing up, these cans, and later just a subset as he got too many, were displayed on a shelf around our kitchen ceiling. My parents are now downsizing, and the cans had to go. So I told them I'd take them, having no idea yet what to do with them. So my dad and I packed them up, about 500 cans, rented a minivan, and drove halfway across the country to put the boxes of cans in my basement. That was back in the summer of 21. The whole NFT thing hit big that winter, so that's when I started getting back into art and posting my photography, and I started getting into the Gen AI code and doing some programming for that just to get familiar with it. In the spring of 22, the idea came to me that they are his beer cans and I should make a picture with them of him. I'd been doing a lot of coding with the pop art people, dogs, and cats morphing into one another, which required all this kind of matching of eye location code, so I was thinking about matching issues. Now it'd be matching cans to pixels in some original image. But that meant having pictures of the cans. Many weekends were spent just photographing each can individually, all 500 like a product shot in a light box. For Father's Day that year, I used an online company that makes photo mosaics and had it sent with my can pictures and a portrait of him. That was a big hit and very encouraging, but those systems cheat and make the contrast change so it's easy to get a good picture. In real life, with real objects, you can't do that. So I wrote the code myself to do the matching. With one can only used once, it meant you had to try millions of combinations to find the one that best fit the target image. There are some machine learning techniques for doing this kind of thing, and it took a while to find one that worked well enough. So I finally got a can-based image of his portrait, about 475 cans in practice, printed it out so I could see where each one went. Now the problem was that I needed to get the cans back out of the boxes and get them to where they should be relative to each other in the picture. Fortunately, I had a ping pong table in the basement to place them on. But it was many more weekends of taking a can out of the box, trying to find it in the picture, placing it on the ping pong table, and so on. Based on the photo mosaic I had made earlier and shared on Facebook, a cousin of mine in Michigan suggested I submit it to Art Prize, an annual 2-week art festival where venues in Grand Rapids choose which art they would want to display on their site. So I figured, why not? Any bar or brew pub would love to have this work. So I had finally gotten the cans in order on the ping pong table, but now I needed a frame to put them in. Not just any frame, but one I could take to Michigan. I created a wooden suitcase that could fold up with the cans inside, each stacked on top of each other in 2 sections. Another many weekends were spent building the suitcase frame, felt backing, latches, handles, rubber feet, etc. Now I had to put the cans upright in the suitcase. You guessed it, many weekends and many can quakes later, I finally had them in place. The good news is that in the meantime, a venue picked me up, a German brew house in Grand Rapids. They had a big empty wall I could put it against, which is where you see it in the image. But it turns out I had to get foam stuffing as all the sizes were different. I had to exclude a row because the wood wouldn't fit in my car, so I had to shorten some dimensions and the end eyeball where the final placement should be, of now about 450 cans. The final element was to get large plexiglass sheets to cover the cans and keep them in place, ironically because at the brew house I was afraid some drunk would spill beer on it or worse. Fortunately, there was a shop less than a mile from me that could custom cut the plexiglass. I rented the one minivan I thought might be able to fit this huge thing in the back with the seats down, and after 4 hours of various angles, I got it to work. My wife and I drove 5 days across the country to Michigan, got it installed, and the rest is non-history. The venue was furthest from downtown. Very few people came to see it. No one bought it, and I drove it back across the country on my own, so now it sits in my basement, folded up, so we don't have to look at my dad every day. There are some of these multimodal models that are coming out that kind of combine text and images.
Zen, do you think, can an AI experience aesthetic appreciation, or is it just, do you think, just putting numbers together?
It doesn't know what it's doing.
So it doesn't ever like sort of figure it out and come together and go, whoa! No, that's not, it doesn't have a
No,
Zen moment.
no. I mean, if you start to then pair that with all the robots, humanoid robots coming out, somewhere in all of those cross connections is where that kind of consciousness might lie. Just from my cognitive science days, I've always thought of, the embodied cognition is the only true cognition there is. And so I think someday there will be a system that can understand and appreciate, art, as it were.
What if AI wrote a book on Zen? Would it reach enlightenment?
Um, it could help us. I mean, I use AI every day to learn about things I don't know much about. Can certainly help people. It's regurgitating concepts. It's read everything also, right? So there's a lot of talk about Buddhism in the world, and so it's like it's combining all of those concepts, and so it can help. I think it can help people obtain some enlightenment. Again, it's like every time I do something with it, I get more ideas. And so that's the joy that I have by using these tools.
Do you think that if AI continues evolving at this current pace, what do you think an artist's role is going to look like in, 10, 20 years, 10 years, let's just go 10 years. What do you think is going to happen?
Being an artist doesn't change, right? It's like you feel compelled to create something, and you have tools to do it. I think more and more people like myself will be able to be artists and create things and ever more on their own. Right now, it takes a whole studio and 10,000 people to make a movie. Uh, but very, very soon, there will be high quality movies that a single person was able to create. And I think that's fantastic. I think more people, there's a lot of ideas out there that are not from Hollywood that deserve to be made.
So if AI had a favorite color, what color do you think that would be?
I think it would have to be blue, just because it's trained on humans and humans average, Favorite color is blue.
Well, then what's Zen's favorite color?
It's blue.
We won't be able to differentiate AI from Zen. What's one thing AI will never be able to do?
Make love.
I agree with you on that. The attempt of what looks like making love, it morphs into the body parts. If you could collaborate with any artist, dead or alive, human or AI, who would that be?
I want to say Shakespeare, but I would be intimidated. I think someone like Andy Warhol would be a lot of fun to hang out with.
May I ask why?
The scenes in New York and like just hanging out with all those other artists, and I think that would be just so much fun to be part of that.
That's interesting. I would have wanted to have met Edie Sedgwick, and I would have wanted to have helped her because
Mm.
I think that although Andy Warhol was incredible, I think that the way in which he treated some of his suspects, like her, was just so wrong. And the fact that he, you know, sort of steered her in a direction and then never made good on what he owed her. To me, it's complete juxtaposition of who you are and your influences. And then it's like this pop dude just comes in and you're like, I want to meet him. That's great. So fantastic. Is there a question that I didn't perhaps ask you?
You could ask me about transliteration.
So what's transliteration? What is
So,
transliteration? Is
so
that even a
trans.
word?
No,
What
I
is
made it
that?
up. I made it up. Yeah, so it's translating, but obliterating the original. It's how I create poetry, taking poems in another language and then just seeing what my brain does with that input and kind of my current situation to produce an output. And that is how I went from Shakespeare's sonnets, just had them randomly translated into Spanish, and then I transliterated that Spanish back into modern English to create what I was dealing with. And so now my big project is to take those poems, those transliterated sonnets, and turn them into sculptures. The tech is almost there that from that image, I can now create a 3D object,
Oh, wow.
which could be 3D printed or seen in augmented reality. And so my goal is that you can walk through my poem.
So this is the future of Zen Materialist, right?
Yeah.
You're creating sculptures now. This is what we're going to see.
Yeah.
And are we talking about one massive that is going to be put out in front of some sort of, I don't know, Michigan State Library? Like, or is this going to be just something that you're creating that's going to be made available for sale?
Hopefully the former. But the idea is it'll be a whole sculpture garden that you
Wow.
can walk from line to line. And that's kind of why I created that whole system was, for this purpose of being able to create sculptures that you can then touch. Generative art, all of that stuff, making that physically real is my goal. There's 154 sonnets of Shakespeare. I transliterated them all during a very difficult period of my life. A lot of those love sonnets turned into hate sonnets.
Oh, wow.
um, so it tells a story, the whole suite of those.
Well, we'll have to meet again when that comes out.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really excited and anxious for this. I can't wait to see this and what you do in the
It could be
future.
years because it's a very long process.
Well, I
There's
know I
so
know that
many.
we're going to remain friends. Thank you so much for this time that we shared together. This was fantastic, and I love your mind. This if this conversation has taught us anything, it's that Zen Materialist isn't just making art, he's conducting a symphony of code. For anybody that's watching this, stay curious, stay weird, and as always, dare to be odd and eat a cookie.
Yeah, thank you, JBR. This has been a lot of fun and a great experience, and it's actually forced me to think about a lot of stuff. It's been great.